Coming up on our Finding Better podcast, my guest is the amazing Cristina Smith. She's a great friend of mine and a mentor and a coach. And she's going to talk about getting your big butt out of the way in terms of finding better and going for better in your life. You don't want to miss this. We're going to have a lot of fun. Please join us and subscribe for a lot more to come. Thanks. Hello, 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 and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. My name is John Suzuki, and this is where we share wisdom, life experiences that you can copy because, sometimes the best way to be successful is to copy success. And we share our life wisdom and we share our life experiences on how we got to a better life so that maybe you can apply that to your own life. We are, speaking of life, what do you really want in your life? A lot of people they go, John, I don't know what I want in my life. And or they know what they want in their life, they don't know how to get there. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm thrilled to have Cristina Smith with me. Cristina is a life coach. She's my mentor. We've become really great friends. She's a book coach. She helped me with that thing right there, American Grit. And she's also an author herself. Yeah, yay! She's an also author herself for and of the best-selling Yoga for the Brain series. You can get it on Amazon, and it's amazing. And the thing about Christina is that she loves to help folks share their wisdom and share their wisdom with the world. And now she's here to share some of her wisdom and some of her life experiences with you. And Cristina, welcome to Finding Better. I am thrilled that you are here.
Well, thank you, John. I am delighted to be here with you. I mean, you walk your talk, and you're a living example of finding better.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And you and you have been, I was just gonna say that you and I have been on this great grand journey together, but then I backed up and I want to say instead that you have been a huge part of my new chapter in my life, which is my chapter of retirement. 2 years ago, as you know, I retired.
Right.
And it took me 15 years to finish that book. And you were such a big part of that in making it all come together and making it actually to the point to where I could hold the book in my hands. And it's just such a wonderful thing. But I want to talk about your experiences. And, as you're talking to people, um, and you work with thousands of people. What would you say is the biggest challenge that people have in finding better in moving forward to make their life better and achieve their dreams?
I can come up with a few things, so I don't know if there's one particular biggest. Uh,
Sure.
One thing that I would say is, even if they do believe it, they use limiting languages when they're talking to themselves and when they're
Yes.
speaking out loud. So
Yeah.
that's
And
one
what
thing.
what does some of that limiting language sound like?
Ooh, I'd really like to do that, but. So their big
Yes.
and small butts get in the way. Because what
Yeah.
happens is but negates everything you just said before that. So
Right.
I would love to do that. And so you go from stop to go.
Yeah.
It's a simple change.
I think about, okay, so I would like to get a really great job in tech, but I'm not smart enough. But everybody
I don't
tells me
have
it's
the
too
right
hard.
degree.
But
Yeah.
yeah, as opposed to I'd really like to get a great job wherever. And here's the reasons why I think I can do it.
And here's what I need to put together to make it work. Or here's my plan for
Yeah,
making it happen. Or or
that
or
is
or
so
or
amazing. The word but is, I just realized that the word but is so disempowering, but the word and is the opposite. It is an empowering word. And so just changing that word, one word.
And you can even go this way, but is exclusive and is inclusive.
Ooh, that is cool. That is cool. You know, I want to share a quick story. One of our first experiences together. Christina and I were working on my book, and I had just hit this roadblock and this mental block in my head. And one of the things that I told her, I said, Christine, I got to get this thing done. I have to get this thing done. It's been 15 years working on this project, and I got to get it done. And so Christina said to me, she says, "What's your hurry?" I said, "Did you just hear what I said? I've been working on this for 15 years, and I got to launch this podcast, and I want to launch it on January 1st. This was a while ago." And she said, "What's your hurry?" And I said, "Why do you keep asking me that question?" And I said, "I got to get this done." And so she says, "John, have you ever gone surfing?" And I said, "No." She says, "But you know what surfing is all about, right?" And I said, "Yeah." She says, "You kind of get on your surfboard, you paddle out there, and then, once you get out there, do you catch the very first wave?" I said, "Probably not." She says, "No. You sit on your surfboard and you wait for the right wave to come in, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And she says, "And then you paddle like crazy to catch that wave and you surf that wave in." I said, "Yeah." She says, "So sit on your surfboard, enjoy the environment, because the right wave is going to come in. And you're going to know when that right wave comes in." And that moment, because I was putting so much stress on myself of what I want, and I got to do this and I have to make it happen. I don't know how. And she just said, "Relax, relax." And all of a sudden, this burden, this 2,000-pound weight just lifted off of me. And I'll tell you, I did. I just scouted waves and I enjoyed the environment. And 2 weeks later, I got back in. I don't know what happens, but Christina, that it was magic for me.
Well, you were also coming off of, you had to unwind. You had just finished the last chapter. I would hardly call you retired, John, but you had finished your last chapter and you were unwinding from that. So you were just backing things up. So sometimes you have to give space and space to flow, and then you can steer and wait for the right wave to come in.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about is that you have been an entrepreneur all your life, right? And being an entrepreneur requires a certain kind of mindset. And I would imagine that it's not necessarily the kind of mindset that you're born with, right? And
I'm not sure, but
really,
but I mean, you're stepping into your
I
entrepreneurial
am.
mindset, so it's something we can cultivate. I'm sure we have it all within us.
That's true. That's true. I grew up in with a dad who, worked for the government for 30 years, got the retirement, and that was kind of the value system that I grew up with, was going and getting a job. And I'd love to explore a little bit about you and your entrepreneurial journey, especially because, these days with technology changing the world, with AI changing the world so fast, we don't know where the world is going. And, I have a lot of friends in technology, who work for Google, who work for tech companies, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. And it's really stressful out there. And, one of the things that I encourage people to consider is an entrepreneurial path, which is something a lot of people have never done before. And so could you talk to that a little bit?
I would love to speak to that. Now, my dad is exactly the same. He worked in the aerospace industry, did his time, and took his retirement as soon as he could, so he could be the jazz musician that he loved to be.
Wow.
However, one way to enter the mindset is to understand that we are all the entrepreneurs of our own lives. We're unfolding, like you were talking with Jeffrey Berwin and Michael Canavet about, right? We're always writing our stories. I mean, that was a great podcast, by the way. We're
Thank you.
writing our stories and we keep stepping into it and we keep rewriting it. So even if you're working for another person, you're still the CEO of your life and you're the entrepreneur of your life and you're stepping forward in creating your story. So how do you want your story to unfold? Obviously, you don't have complete control over all of the external elements. However, you do have control of how you approach things and how you navigate your inner world and how you respond to what's going on in the outer world.
That's an amazing thing that you just said, that we are all, basically entrepreneurs of our own lives, right? Because when you think about an entrepreneur, you think about a business, you got to have income coming in. You have lots of expenses, you got lots of responsibilities, you got to plan, you got to do all those different kinds of things. So your life as a family and as an individual is of itself a business, right?
Well, I think you're leaving out a really important key element, and
Okay,
that's
good.
you have to have a vision. Most entrepreneurs start with a vision and then they take steps forward and then they get information and then they adjust, maybe they revise, maybe they adapt because of all the things that you did just mention. There's all the elements, there's all the logistical parts. However,
Right.
it has to align with your vision. So if your vision of yourself is in alignment with what you're doing and how your life is flowing, then things you have energy for doing things because it's like having a spine that's way out of whack and you have low back pain all the time, or a spine that where everything's feeling good and you're rolling along and things are good and things are flowing. If you're not in alignment, or what another term is coherence with yourself and what your vision of yourself is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be whether you like or dislike your job. You need to, I'm more talking about you're at peace with where you are and how you're approaching it.
You know, I think you're right. Well, I know you're right because that was the one piece that I have been missing for a big part of my life, right? Because we get so caught up in keeping up with every day. Um, the idea of create a vision for your life. What is your life's vision? And how do people get that?
How do people get a life vision? Well,
Yeah,
I mean, that's a big, hairy ask to have an overarching life vision. And you have to do it today and you can't ever change it. That is not what it is. It's
right.
more of an organic process. And sometimes it can start with your vision for your day. You can consider, you start small and you build from there. But maybe think about what you've always wanted to do. Maybe you've always wanted to take up watercolor. My mom had always wanted to. She started when she was 74. She loved it, made her really happy. But is your vision of you inside the work world, outside the work world? But honor those visions, write them down, or find a place to record them. Some people like doing it graphically, some people like writing it down, but you don't need to edit them as like thinking you're too old, it's too late, you're too this, you're too that, but just write them down because they're yours. And once you write them down, as they say, in the beginning was the word, then once you write the word down, it goes from out here in the ethers or in your head to right here in the world. So it can start to come true, however it unfolds. And even if this is a vision you've had for yourself since you were young, maybe it's time to revise it, or maybe it's no longer pertinent to your life, and maybe you test it out and you go, you know, glad I was able to walk through that, but not so much anymore. So it's kind of like you keep steering and flowing your life toward what you want to make your vision to be.
That is the idea of just acknowledging and understanding um, the idea of having a vision and creating a vision and starting, right? And going, okay, so my life is here. My life is where it is right now. Where do I want it to go? And one of the things that I come across when I talk to people a lot is I can't do that. I can't do that. That person can do it, but I can't do it. And I've always believed that if it's been done, anybody can do it too. But people have such in their minds, a lot of people have such limiting beliefs, be it from what they've learned or what they've been told or what their experiences have been, that it can be really hard for folks to break through those.
You're right. And sometimes when people say I can't do that, you know what I say? Is okay. And that pretty much stops them. I go, well, wait a second, aren't you going to try and talk me out of
Yeah.
it? And
Wait, wait,
then
wait, wait.
that interrupts because a lot of times we get into the hamster wheel of I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that, and you start to believe your own press.
And this is where we come in helping people, right? I mean, I love this format of finding better because it's all about sharing. I wanted to share this. I took this off my wall, and
Okay.
I do have this on my wall, and it's from C.S. Lewis. I think you can see it, right?
Yeah, it's
It
great. That's a
says
great quote.
it says you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending.
I love that. However, I
I
think I would add something else to it.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
You can start and change the now because we don't that has a past and a future in it. It doesn't have the present in it. And the now is by changing the now, we change everything.
Yeah.
By changing the now, you can change the past because you change your perspective and you change the ending.
And you know what the beautiful part about that is,
Yes.
Christina?
Yeah.
Is that you can.
Uh-huh.
Everybody can. And I tell folks that, your life until now has been the product of choices and decisions that you've made. And some people have a problem with that because they say, well, gosh, I couldn't choose my parents and so forth and so on. But so then I back up and I say, the product of your life in the future, the product of your life and what happens in the future and where you end up is going to be largely due to the choices and decisions you make from now on. And of course, people say, well, yeah, I buy into that. And so the now is choose now.
It's really all we have. I mean, we can project into the future, we can recall the past. And by choosing things in now, like sometimes I will go back to I think about myself as the now of the past. And sometimes I actually have a picture of myself in my 20s where I was really had a way different life. And so sometimes I will sit and go into that now in that chronology. And
Uh-huh.
I can also project into the future now. I mean, you can still change it. I mean, nothing is for sure because we all have free will to make the choices we do in every moment. And one thing that I find that a lot of people do is they sit and say, well, all this, they really rely on the past to hold them back from the future. And my perspective is here we are right now, start where we are and let's move on.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. Now you talked about your mom when she was 74 years old. She
Hmm.
decided to take up watercolor.
Yep.
That's amazing. That's amazing, right? Of course, one of the questions we could talk about later is why did she wait 74 years? Well, let's talk about why did she wait 74 years? And what prompted her to take it up when she did?
Um, Basically because she was decided that she wanted to do this kind of stuff, and it came. Sometimes the availability opens up. For example, there was a place in her neighborhood that was an art gallery that started offering watercolor classes. Or what I did this year, I'd always thought about taking Italian, and I opened the community education a handout and it had beginning Italian classes at a time I could go online. So I took 6 weeks, 8 weeks of Italian this year, and it was like cool. That the when the opportunity comes around, then you need to say yes to it because if you've written it down and put it on here on the earth, then Sometimes you just have to watch for it to come into your world, and then the next thing you do is say yes to it and go for it, even if it seems really out there, like starting painting watercolors when you're 74.
And who knows what can happen, right? I
Right.
mean, the worst thing that can happen is you find out you don't like it and you move on. And
Actually, that can also be the best thing that can happen.
that's
Is
true.
because if you were to leave the planet with that longing inside, and you hadn't decided, that you hadn't tried it and figured out if you liked it or didn't like it, then that could have a potential regret is I never did watercolor. But now you said I tried watercolor and I'm really glad I did it, but it's not for me.
There you go. There's an old saying that says people regret more what they didn't do than they regret what they did do, and or something like that.
I
And
have I
I'm a
have a
big believer
story
in that.
for you about
Uh-huh.
it's in my business world, but I was one of my iterations in my entrepreneurship was I was very involved in the subtle energy and science communities. And there's an international organization that I had longed to become the CEO of for years and years and years, probably 10, 15 years. It was my big goal to become the CEO. And I was very active in the community. And when the time came and the position became available, I was offered it. And I was excited, of course, because this has been,
Sure.
a 10-year or 15-year on my things that I would like to have happen. And then I reviewed the job position and everything according to it and really sat with it and looked at my life now compared to when I had first had that vision. And I did a phone interview and I slept on it and I actually declined the position.
Is that because your life changed a little bit?
Well, my life had changed, my goals had changed. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it was really amazing to have something that I had longed for so deeply from a
No
professional
kidding.
level to come to fruition. And I really enjoyed honoring the fact that it had come to fruition and really savored that. And was very grateful to that I had taken the time to really take a look at what was going to work for me right now.
Yeah, yeah, wow. Yeah, life changes. And there are times when you learn the old saying, be careful what you ask for.
Because you might
Because
get
you might
it.
just get it. Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so life is an evolution, and it's okay to start with a vision and let life take you forward. Don't get stuck on whatever vision that you have. Christina, so tell tell us about your rock and roll band.
You mean Rogues of Chaos?
That's it.
I thought you might ask me about my rock band
Yeah.
Rogues of Chaos.
Yeah, yeah.
I play in a
That's
rock
amazing.
band in San Diego. I play keyboards. And actually, I was just interviewed last night for actually a well-known publication in San Diego, the San Diego Reader, along with my bandmates. And I have a blast. I'm a classically trained organist. I started taking organ lessons when I was like 5 or 6. And my first gig ever was playing, paid gig was playing at the Sunday school that I went to on Sundays. And after that, I moved along in my career and went into radio and theater and TV and writing and on and on. And I kind of left music for a little while, but then I came back around to it and was invited to join this band by actually someone I've known since first grade and who had reached out to me 3 or 4 years ago, just out of the blue, because we went to high school together. And he said, "Hey, I got a band. You want to play?" I said, "Sure." So I'm just saying yes has been just a big blast. Been having so much fun. And we've got singles out now that are doing fairly well and getting listened to all around the world.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah, when you first told me about your rock and roll band, I just went, What? I thought I heard you. I thought I heard you say a rock and roll band. I'm like, did she say a rock and roll band?
And he
That is
really
so
did do
great.
that. He did that. He actually, he's not making that up. He did exactly.
Yeah, I'm like the deer in the headlights, like,
Are you
huh?
serious?
But how awesome is that? That is
It's
just
so
so
much fun.
wonderful. Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking back on our conversation about your entrepreneurial um, journey, and I'll tell you something. What I found in my life is that um, you learn, you learn. One of my greatest jobs I ever had was working for a small company, a startup, and it wasn't my own company. But it was a startup and we had 20 employees and we all had to wear different hats um, and we learned different things because you have to, right? And so in that case, you had 20 people running this company as opposed to working for IBM, which I've worked for as well, right? Where you learn a very, very limited discipline, but you learn it very deeply. And and I'll tell you, the learning that I received from working in that startup made it, I think, the best professional job I ever had.
That's cool.
And yeah, and I gotta believe that, being an entrepreneur, um, you learn all kinds of things and you learn whatever you want to learn, which is pretty
Well,
cool.
sometimes you learn things you don't want to learn.
This is true. This is true, but it makes you better, right?
Sure. Sometimes
Just
I
go
learn
with
that
it.
I don't want to learn how to do that, so I better find someone I can hire who likes to do that.
That's it. Right, right. That's right. That's right. And that's all good. That's all
Mhm.
good. That's all good.
And
So
but there's
let's,
something for there's also something for to be said for going deep.
there
Um,
is.
so there one is not particularly better than the other because a lot of times the generalists who just swirl around, they don't do anything particularly well, but they do everything adequately. Or maybe they do a
Hmm.
couple things well, but everything else is adequate. When you have a
Right,
specialist, they do, like you said, they do that one thing well, but there's not that kind of maneuverability. So it's good.
right.
It's good to have all the different skill sets.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, these days, in the old days of IBM, I mean, I started my professional career in 1984, and back then, the pensions were still there. The idea of working for a company for 30 years was still there. 10 years later, I realized that that was going away, right? And it was in the mid 1990s that, companies were scaling back on their pensions and stuff like that. But fast forward to today, you know, it's tough, right? And it's hard to advise young people on what to do. So one of the things that I tell them is pick up a hobby, pick up a side gig, learn about just an internet business or something, right? But build your skills. So if that day it ever comes where you find yourself in a really tough place, you'll have something to fall back on.
Well, I mean, life as an entrepreneur isn't always rosy. At some points in time, I was scraping together change to buy some vegetables, in my
Totally.
early 20s. When you were at IBM, I have never worked for a big company, so kudos to you. And, exactly right. The time of our fathers definitely has passed where they both ended up with their pensions and were able, there was a whole different societal model. I
Right.
actually what I would say to younger people is what are you curious about? And follow that line. And then think about, if you want to do something, if you have an idea and you want to do it, don't let your big or little butt get in the way. See if you can figure out a way to do it. Because that honestly, that's how I have forged my whole world is I will have a vision. Sometimes I call myself a vision grounder because I help people ground their visions like you help you had a vision of writing this book and I helped you put it onto the ground so we can now hold it in our hands, right? So if you have a vision of doing anything, Give yourself the go ahead and the green light and the yes to follow it through until you come to either completion or an obvious stop point where you go, nah, I think I'm good. And that
That's
that you keep
awesome.
on limiting yourself and creating the space in your world to live a creative life and write the story of your life that works for you.
Give yourself permission. I love
Right.
that. Give yourself permission. And don't let your big or little butt get in the way.
And here's the other thing is
That's a
stop.
quote. That's a quote.
Also, stop trying. Either, as Yoda would say, do or do not. What the word try does, it implies failure. I tried. You can
Oh,
experiment. Um, you can experiment. You can do all kinds of other things. However, trying implies failure.
I've never
So,
heard that before.
and the other word that I like to suggest people consider eliminating from their languaging is should, because should implies guilt. I should go to the dentist.
Yep.
So
Take
either,
all the shoulds out of your life.
yeah, quit shitting on your other, get your big and little butts out of the way, and stop trying.
Quit shitting on yourself. Okay, good. That's amazing. Folks, I mean, if you haven't gotten something from Cristina out of this conversation, man, you haven't been listening. All right. Well, with that, Cristina, do you have anything else you'd like to add or impart with the folks out there?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. This is my probably one of my most popular books, and guess what it's called?
Yes.
What you're talking about is life wisdom. There's 60 different flavors of life wisdom in this particular book, and there are millions and billions of others. And the most important bit of life wisdom is yours. And the life
Yeah.
wisdom that you dig up by getting to know yourself as well as you can, doing your best to set yourself up for success, staying curious, and following where it leads you.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And giving yourself permission to do all those things, including being curious. And
Exactly.
it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Cristina, yoga for the brain, right?
Yeah.
Um, where can people find it, and where can people find more information about you?
Well, you can pick up all of my books on Amazon.com. And I wrote the Yoga for the Brain series with my brother, which was a really great time and very fun to work with him. Because he's a retired technologist like you. So his this was his idea of a good time. And you can go to my name, CristinaSmith.com. I also have yogaforthebrain.com. So they're both there.
Wonderful. And Cristina Smith is easy, but Cristina is without the H. So it's
Correct.
Cristina. Cristina Smith. So, Cristina, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. That was that was awesome.
Thank you.
Don't shit all over yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, it's stuck. It's stuck. Can
And
you
quit
tell?
trying and get your big butt out of the way.
That's it. That's it.
Thank you,
All right.
John.
Cristina, I love you. God bless you. Folks out there, I love you. God bless you. Thank you for joining us. Share this episode. Share it because this is all about sharing to help people live better lives, and it's all good and lifting one another. So until next time, thanks. Bye.